Being by yourself can be better for your soul than being with someone. It might sound too bold or even weird, especially if you were taught that love is the final answer, that being alone means you failed and that you need to heal. Carl Jung knew something deeper, though. Some wounds can only heal in silence, and some powers not being watched, and some versions of your real self will only show up when you stop chasing people. At all costs, this video will show you why choosing to be alone can. You will not be able to do anything after you finish your most powerful change. If you're desperate for connection, you'll show it, so stay with me until the end. I'll show you how to use your loneliness to your advantage, even if it hurts now and you haven't done it yet. Joined yet? Now is the time for this channel to look into deep change, self-awareness, and psychology as they really are, without any filters from A. We learn early on that being by yourself means something is wrong. A quiet child is. When an adult who is single is labeled as unhappy, silence is filled with noise for fun and conversation, anything to get rid of the pain that wish. Carl Jung said that becoming whole happens when the outside world is quiet. Needs to look inside, but our culture told us the opposite. Trained to find their identity in other people and create a social image that pleases, adapts, and avoids rejection, we start to mix up relationship with. Dependence is scary, and the more we hold on to this pattern, the scarier it is. Being alone doesn't hurt because the pain that needs to be felt right now surfaces when you're by yourself and comes from old mental wounds that haven't been healed. Rejections, memories of being left behind, and rejections come back when there's no one left to perform, because the ego is the one who freaks out in quiet, because the ego needs to be heard. To feel real, the soul needs to be in the company of someone else. Is not scared of quiet, but the ego is because it learned to stay alive by. To the ego, being alone feels like a threat, but to the soul, it's a calling. Jung thought that retreat isn't a getaway, but a rite of passage that lets you be alone with no one else around. What comes up isn't nothingness. It's the unconscious stuff you've been holding on to, pushed down for years, and that's where the real inner work starts, by yourself. Shifts that make you feel things when you're used to responding instead of feeling something is very uncomfortable, but it's the beginning of the process of becoming an individual. When you stop trying to avoid quiet and start to listen to it, you become whole. When you're alone, you're not being punished for being alone. You're being asked to get back together with your true self, maybe for the first time without any filters or middlemen. And that reunion doesn't bring fireworks, it comes with. When there is silence, there is sometimes a void that feels hollow. The soul begins to breathe again. Carl Jung called this individuation, the way to becoming your true self, not the version of yourself that other people saw, what people wanted, but what you've always wanted in this path. Never starts with noise. It starts when you stop and take a step back. This type of absence is not helped by taking your mind off of things and finally looking inside. You're telling your mind, I'm ready to face what I've been through. It's when the character steps aside so the real person can shine through that the focus goes away. And meet the person behind the mask. Society told us that being still means lost, that being alone makes you weak, but Jung saw it another way, where the real self, the core of the mind, starts to show itself, and it doesn't happen with noise. It's soft and quiet at first, almost impossible to hear, but very strong when the noise is loud. Fades, you hear your soul for the first time. It doesn't scream, it whispers, remembering gut feelings and stored emotions that were buried under stress, distractions, and the need to please at. At first, this may feel strange, and you may not even know yourself without your habits, jobs, or relationships, but that means if you're on the right track, your true self won't appear quickly. It will take time. This is not a straight line when there is enough room inside for it to rise. Road, it's a deep journey inside. You don't gain, you lose, you stop looking. You can only leave something important behind and come back to something important when you choose to step out. Getting away from everyone and everything and being alone stops being a lack of something. Is so full of presence that you finally see what has always been there. There's something inside you that's just waiting for the right time to come out. Something subtle but strong starts to happen. Things that used to feel solid inside you start to crack, but they're not falling apart. According to Jungian psychology, the character is the mask we put on to do our jobs. It's our job to be nice, strong, and fun in the world. The capable one's image is real, but it's limited because it's made to fit a certain type of person, and to protect and belong, but it stops fitting over time, and this shift usually starts with quiet because when life is full of people and stress, it's like protection, but when things calm down and no one is looking at. As your armor starts to break, you become aware of many of your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. We're just natural reactions based on feelings and habits that were learned. Acceptance, and it can be scary when that show is over because what's left is just you, untouched, raw, and real. But that's also Jung said, individuation only begins when your image starts to loosen, and it doesn't happen by force. Gently when you stop feeding the role and start taking care of your real self. Yes, it's disturbing, and you might feel like the ground is moving away from you. You might feel lost, but that's not confusion. It's just the start of what you're about to do. You're making room to find the real you by letting go of the version of yourself you were taught to be. At this point, you might feel sad, angry, or even scared. That's okay. Since your character has been with you for so long, it feels like your identity is fading. Emotions that have been pushed down come to the surface. This isn't a breakdown, it's the mind clearing out. When something no longer helps you, being alone is more than just an outside condition. It turns into an internal tool that shows you how you look by taking away your clothes and helping you get better. You're not losing who you are, you're just taking off the clothes. After all the noise and roles are over, what's left is the beginning of something genuine, something that doesn't need praise, something that only grows. What do you see first when you stop running away from yourself and a mask comes off? Isn't always comfort or ease. The ghost has weight. It's like going into a room that hasn't been opened in years and seeing dust move around in the silence. In that moment, quiet isn't just the lack of sound. It's like a mirror. In Jungian psychology, this secret mirror makes you face all the feelings you've been trying to avoid your whole life. Material is called the shadow, and it includes all of you. You chose not to see your pain, fear, anger, trauma, or shame, not because you were weak, but you didn't have the space or support to deal with it at the time. The shade holds everything that was turned down, thrown out, or called not good enough. It starts to show up when you stop running and stay still for a while. As old memories come back to you, feelings you thought were long gone come flooding back. Force a grief without a name, an anger without a goal, and a fear that seems never ending. In that quiet, everything starts to talk. This is where most people turn away and go back to interactions that aren't satisfying. The comfort of habit, because facing the shadow is hard. It takes awareness, humility, and patience, and there's no focus. A wise man named Jung once said, "One does not become awakened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness aware." That's what it means. You're feeling right now. You're not going backward. You're cleaning. The pain is not punishment. It is the start of freedom. Yes, there will be times when you feel trapped. There will be times when you want to give up and wonder if it's even worth it to keep going. It's important to know that this is not the end, but the start of something. The darkest part of your journey is right before the light comes back. When you feel everything you want, but your soul has already begun to move forward and it doesn't want to go back. People often get lost at this time, but some are able to find their way. Born again, those who stay in this tough moment pass through a doorway. When people look their ghost in the eye, they see that there is. You're not falling apart. You're strong, aware, and powerful, being reprogrammed, and the raw stuff that comes to the surface, no matter how messy it is, of your change. The real question is whether you'll leave yourself again, or will you keep going even though you're scared? Let's be honest. Everyone chose to be alone, but some were forced to be alone because they were hurt, ignored, or left. When you're alone, it can be liberating to leave everything behind. When you wake up and choose to spend time with yourself, it's one thing, but being alone is painful. Wake up to find that no one stayed, no one listened, and no one came back many. People hide how lonely they are by acting independent. They learn to count on themselves after being let down. Too many times they built walls not because they like quiet, but because being close hurt, but that kind of space doesn't heal. It makes you stronger. Jung said that a soul starts to fall apart when it is left alone for too long. Inward, when being alone becomes a way to stay alive. Life energy stops moving. The person starts to live in constant defense mode. What seems like freedom is often just fear of what others might do. Trying to bond after being hurt again, the line between being alone and being alone is thin, but it matters that you find yourself again when you're alone. Keep the outside world away from you. One way leads to healing, the other to hiding. That's why it's so important too. Being alone isn't something you choose, it's something you get used to. Is it really peace I feel, or am I just mentally numb? Sometimes that kind of thinking can be painful, but it's the first step toward change. Because until you face that pain, you can't move forward. You keep going around and around in the same pain that you can't feel. That's not dealt with turns into a routine, and saying I don't need anyone is often just a way to hide the truth. No one ever needs you. You didn't break when you picked me. You just had to protect yourself. Now is the time for something different, when you can choose to be quiet again. Not a sentence, time to let go of the weight of being left behind and start walking toward yourself, not with shields, but with presence. True isolation heals. It's hard to understand that difference is the best way to take care of yourself, and being alone may be your first real step. When your soul finally starts to feel safe and your body acts because it had to get through it too. It tightened up just to make it through being rejected, criticized, and left behind. Going through for a long time, you might not have known how much you were living in survival mode, always ready for the worst. Something bad to happen. You should always hold your breath and keep your heart and shoulders tight. But as you start to see alone time not as a punishment, but as a place for, when you reconnect your nerve system, it gets a new message. You are safe. Carl Jung said this, said the unconscious isn't just in the mind, it's stored in the body too. Every time an unresolved story turned, the feeling you didn't deal with turned into tension, into a physical block that hurts or makes you tired all the time. That's why real change can't just happen in your head. You have to feel it, understand it, and live it through your body, and that's exactly what starts to happen here. You sleep better, you breathe deeper, and you don't have to explain yourself as much. Protect yourself or get ready for the worst. Your body starts to line up with the present, and it doesn't feel like a danger shift for the first time. This change isn't sudden. It happens slowly, but it's deeply freeing. When you realize you don't have to be on high watch all the time, you realize it's possible to live without. You learn that it's okay to feel your feelings when you have to keep showing your worth. Without giving in to them, this state isn't about separating, it's about when your mind, body, and soul start to move in sync, you're in balance. A rhythm that doesn't require work to keep up, a sense of worth that isn't dependent on approval from other people, a peace that doesn't depend on other people's acceptance. Being alone no longer feels like a burden. It turns into a steady and known place inside you, a place of inner calm. That place doesn't reject the world. It just doesn't depend on it to keep you grounded. You start to understand that kindness is strong and that real safety comes from just being there. Being alone no longer feels like being exposed. It feels like being whole. And when the body realizes this, it calms down, its defenses come down, and for the first time for a long time, you are just allowed to be. There is no stress, no need to hurry, and no fear. Something starts to rise when the body calms down and the nervous system calms down. It's a gentle awareness that isn't loud or violent like a shock. A soft inner whisper lets you know something you can't quite put your finger on. I think that's intuition. Intuition doesn't try to be heard. It doesn't try to cut through the noise of the world, but it waits for you to pause and stop, looking for answers, reasons, or confirmation from outside sources, and to start. You can believe the wisdom that's already inside you. Jung, you're not gone, you're just resting. He thought that intuition was one of the four most important processes of the mind. Having the power to understand deep truths and hidden patterns without using reasoning. A smarts that come from the soul, not the mind, and it only shows when there's enough quiet inside to hear it. When you're in this steady presence with yourself, you start to feel what's right, even before you know why. You can tell where you're going before you see signs. It's not magic, it's inner balance, which means your mind is free from. When the noise is turned down, you can hear the small changes and feel uneasy. Sometimes you might not notice that something doesn't fit with who you're becoming, but it's there pulling you in a certain direction, different way. And over time, you start to accept that feeling and follow it. Less of what the world wants and more of what your soul is gently leading you to understand. Doesn't need proof and doesn't make its case, because when you're in touch with yourself, doubt goes away. There's a calm confidence that comes over you that you don't get from pride. The most honest part of you that always knew but was never given a chance to say it. Not from ego. To talk, this is the real power of choosing to be alone. It doesn't just. When you shut out the outside world, you can see a whole new one inside, where answers aren't sought, but rather seen, and being present doesn't just mean. When you feel calm, your gut turns into your compass and your future self. Wake something deep inside you, and you stop looking for direction outside because it's now coming from inside, and with this sharpness and image, starts to shape your future self. But this isn't about trying to be perfect. Trying to be a different person or make a change isn't as obvious. Little by little, you start to pay attention to the energy of the person you want to become, and instead of chasing them, walk next to them. In Jungian psychology, the self is a sign of being whole on the inside. Your future self is a representation of the whole and balanced picture of your soul. As a journey, not as a destination to be reached, but as a way to find greater meaning and direction. You begin to understand that what you were looking for was never really missing. It was always inside you, ready to grow. And when you start to live in tune with that energy, your future self doesn't change the things that make choices easier, set firmer limits, or improve relationships. It wants you to work hard. It wants you to pay attention quietly. It doesn't judge who you are now. It appreciates every step you've taken. It took to get here, and the closer you feel to this inner presence, the easier it is to say no to things that don't serve you. It's like stepping into something that no longer fits or talks to your soul. You feel like you're in a new, more energetic space even before anything else changes. Freedom comes before peace, before anything changes on the outside, and that. You feel deeply grounded because you're no longer just chasing something far away. This change it's quiet, but it changes everything. What was once a goal becomes a normal state. You stop waiting for the world to change before you can feel peace. What was once a dream becomes real. Start living in peace, and the world will respond. This presence doesn't ask for it. It doesn't chase, it just leads, and by leading, it changes you. Get away from your pastor and fix the present. You're becoming someone who can live the life you once dreamed. Up until now, a lot of your journey has been about recovery and calming down. You can face your pain and make room for growth. But when you connect with your future self, you stop. As you stop trying to fit in and start living your truth, your energy slowly runs out, being a response, and turns into a calm presence that you don't react to every. Ask for every promise and every bit of noise you start to make at a frequency that originates from a frequency that changes your surroundings naturally. Jung used the term self to describe the inner organizing center in analytical psychology. When you're in tune with it, your energy is balanced and fear doesn't control you. By the need to be accepted or the fear of being turned down, you're emotional. People around you can feel the change as the world starts to come together. Start to treat you differently. Events that used to happen over and over again stop happening. Relationships that were draining end. You fell apart not because you changed into someone else, but because you stopped. That kept them living. You don't have to prove yourself or be I understood that your presence speaks for you. I heard it for myself. I honored it. I won't give up on myself just to fit in somewhere I don't belong. This isn't vanity, it's honesty. You don't boss people around. You stand tall. You don't shut down, but you also don't shrink to fit in. Your confidence becomes magnetic because where there was looking, there is now grounding. You start to attract people who are like you, not as rewards, but as natural, have events that show your new state of mind. As the person you become, your outside world starts to show your. That changes everything. That's the power of being alone with yourself. It changes more than just the inside of you. It changes the place around you too. You start to feel something strong. You don't have to look for connection when you already feel it. Whole now that your presence doesn't ask, it sends out waves, and what those waves do starts to. Once your energy is balanced, love changes too, and it no longer feels like a place where you can lose yourself and share easily. You no longer need someone to make you whole. You're whole. You are whole enough to love without losing yourself. Being alone teaches you this. It teaches you that you can be who you are without being in a relationship to feel whole. That peace doesn't depend on other people being there, and that real love only grows when you're not looking. Carl Jung once said, "No healthy relationship can be born. Each soul must find its own center in order for souls to truly meet. If you don't, love turns into fusion, and fusion turns into a place you start to see the ties you used to hold on to out of fear and the deals you made just to stay together. To keep things quiet and avoid being left alone, you agreed to the silence. Now, those patterns don't make sense at all because when you're whole, you can't accept things that hurt you anymore. And that doesn't mean you have to shut down or become detached. It means you have to love. To love more deeply, honestly, and with full awareness means to love from a place of fullness, not nothingness. Since you don't want it because you need to be saved right now, you don't wait for someone else to see how valuable you are. You don't change. If you want to get shallow support from other people, you have to show up fully. Love like this doesn't look for ways to make you feel whole. It stays where it is. It doesn't try to get your attention. It just flows, and when it hits, when you find someone who is just as grounded, it makes a bond where both of you feel safe. You get ready for this when you spend time alone. You can walk next to each other without having to shrink to make room for the other person. For a heart that can love without getting lost in it. Use your imagination. When love comes into your life, it doesn't look for a way to break you. Has to finish, it looks for someone who already feels whole, someone who chose to stay with themselves before. You can let someone in now that you know the power of awareness. Being alone may bring up a new question. How can you keep this state in your daily life? The answer lies in A. Presence is a simple but strong word. The best way to build that presence is by making a place for yourself where you can connect with the peaceful person you already are. The practice of active imagining is at the heart of this activity. K.L. Jung's work, active imagination, is not the same as simple positive thought. Connects your aware mind to your unconscious mind. It's having a meaningful talk with the deeper parts of your mind can lead to big changes in how you live your life. Feel, pick, and live. The goal is to make it internal. Being with what Jung called the self, which means meeting your inner wholeness and quiet knowledge. And your inclination to start by setting aside some time for silence, but not. This isn't just any silence. It's silence that you choose to have. Here's how to do it. Close your eyes and take deep breaths until your thoughts come to you. Slow down, and then say, "I am here," over and over in your thoughts. Is more than just a phrase. It's an anchor that helps you come back to yourself. Let your ideas run wild without trying to make it fit a certain mold. You who already has peace within yourself. This version may come to you as a clear picture or with just a calm feeling. The important thing is that it shows harmony, clarity, and truth. Pay close attention to this version. How does it move? How does it breathe? Does it deal with the problems of life? What loads has it already lifted? Then ask yourself 2 questions in silence. What did you hear? Let me get to this point. What do I still need to learn? And then I'll just. If you listen, the answer could be a word, a picture, a memory, or even a. Don't think too much. Just take when you're ready to end. Say to this version of yourself, I see you and I walk. Thank this version of yourself. Toward you. This last sentence seals the deal. Remember, this isn't about not running away from reality, but getting back in touch with the most grounded and aware version of who you already are. Even if it seems easy, this exercise really does help. It trains your mind to come back to the present moment. It changes your focus from outside to inside. At the same time, it improves your connection with the fullest part of yourself. Yes, but symbols have real power because each new story starts with one. With a quiet move, a choice that says, I've come home. You're not empty. You're full of yourself and pieces of yourself that you forgot were hidden or kept quiet. In the name of relationships that never really saw you alone, didn't leave you alone. It brought you back to yourself for a long time. You thought being alone hurt meant you were failing because you needed someone else to feel whole. But maybe now you see, Carl Jung once said that realizing that pain was the first step. Ask, the most important encounters are the ones we have with ourselves. Also, when you stop ignoring yourself, this might be the most powerful one yet. And start to look at yourself with awareness, not judgment. Be honest with yourself. Want to know what came from this? It wasn't numbness, it was power. You stopped being cold and became whole. Now you have a peace that doesn't depend on others. You're clear in a way that doesn't need confirmation from others, and you give often. Energy that doesn't fit into wild places anymore because it has learned to. It should shine with its own truth. This isn't loneliness, it's self-choice. Putting down roots inside so that if love comes along, which it might, it finds good soil instead of empty land waiting to be saved. This trip isn't about putting love away. It's about getting ready. Relationships are no longer places to hide. They're now like windows that show what's going on in, that you've already built up. And now that you're here, ask yourself, what did you learn about being alone and being present that changed your life during this journey? It's enough for you to just be here with me. So leave a message below. It's more than just a sign that you watched all the way through. It's a promise to yourself. If this message spoke to you, if it changed how you see silence, please click the thanks button to support this channel. Below, your help, which is more than gratefully acknowledged, lets me keep going. Putting together well-thought-out material with your help, this message can reach. More people need to hear what you just heard, which is that sometimes being alone is the fastest way to get back to being who you really are. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.